For our deep dive guest today, we have a really special guest. It is Mohammed Almadani, the CEO of Classera. Classera made big news this week by raising a $40 million Series A round, which is the largest of bootstrapped company. It's the largest in the Middle East and North Africa region, and it's a history-making round for an exciting company. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having us in this wonderful podcast.
Yeah, it's really good to have you. So tell us about the Series A round, how it came about, and what you're going to be doing with it.
Yeah, as you said, it made some news, being the biggest of its kind for a company in EdTech with no prior funding. That's maybe a surprise that many people don't know that Classera, even though we are in over 30 countries, didn't know that we did not raise anything before, not even from angel. So that was something of a surprise, and it explained also the size of the round.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Series A with the equivalent to a size of a Series C. And we were proud of the investors. We have a unique set of investors from around the globe. So in the Classera, maybe you know the story, we started in the Bay Area and Silicon Valley, then focused in emerging markets. We started with MENA and Africa. So we wanted to have investors that have, from both, like from emerging markets and from Silicon Valley. And that's what we end up doing in this round. So the round is led by Sanabel, which is a subsidiary of PIF, which is the fifth largest sovereign fund in the world, which is, of course, very strong in the emerging markets, especially, and in the world stage. And it's joined by many great global investors. We have Global Venture, which is backed by funds like General Atlantic, Tiger, and many other big institution investors. And you have 500 Global, in the known VC in Silicon Valley. We have Endeavor Catalyst, which is chaired by Reid Hoffman, the chairman of LinkedIn. And we have also other VCs from the emerging markets like Sukna and Sidra and many others. Actually, we also have, investors, famous known company in Silicon Valley investing also in this round. Maybe they don't want us to share all the details, but, we have some very interesting set of investors from both Silicon Valley and the emerging market. We're, very excited that this round and with this size will, help us to get to our goals and our global goals much faster. We have a clear goal to be a global company, disturbing e-learning, and the way it is done with a focus of being the leader of emerging market. Yep. That's the focus. And we want to be the global player that is mastering, that part, which is the emerging market.
That's fantastic. You mentioned it's sort of a Silicon Valley meets, Middle East and North Africa strategy. You have offices in both places. You have investors in both places. It's a really unusual and very exciting story. And emerging markets are such a obviously untapped, world for EdTech. We are going global with EdTech, and it is really exciting to see that there are, serious money going in from all sorts of people to make sure that the Middle East and North Africa and the rest of Africa all have access to platforms like Classera. So I bet some of our listeners are not familiar with Classera at all. They're mostly in the US and Europe. You have this learning super platform. Tell us about what Classera is.
When we started back in the Bay Area and Silicon Valley with the idea that we wanted to create, the next generation of e-learning and learning management platform based on gamification, personalization, and collaboration. So we had a recipe. We said we want something that is inspiring, personalized, and collaborative. How to do that? Using gamification for the inspiration element, using AI for the personalization, and using social learning for the collaboration, all to get a better engagement. That's what we were trying to solve, a better engagement and therefore a better learning experience. So that's what we started with. Then with a focus, even though we got some, great clients in the US, we wanted to focus in emerging markets, a much bigger impact. Me personally, what drove me to start this company is the impact. I think, learning and, the disruption of learning is among the most noble causes because it unleashes the potential of a person or even a nation to be something completely different. So I think we are in EdTech, and all the listeners who are passionate about this industry, we're lucky to be among the most impactful, I would say, or most impactful industries ever in the world. So that's what the drive, and emerging market, even a much better impact. So say, let me focus there. So we did start by focusing in Middle East and Africa. So that was the focus. And we did that bootstrapped, and, we went all the way to now where we are in 30 countries and the biggest EdTech company in that part of the world. And with this funding round will help us to go further. And about what is new is exactly what you talked about, is the new category that we want to create in EdTech. So we're trying to come up with a new concept in EdTech, which we want to call the LSP, the Learning Super Platform. Especially in emerging market, education and training institution love the concept of consolidation, of having a turnkey solution. Mm-hmm. So that's what we are going forward. That's what we already started doing. So we started with this gamified learning management platform based in AI and social learning, as I told you. We added a layer of ERP, like a full enterprise solution for those very specialized for education and training institution. And then on top of that, think of it as these two layers of SaaS. We build on top of that monetization engine for payment. So we have a payment solution to do the payment of tuition and financing this tuition. And then we have a marketplace for education products called Idiomo. So we integrate with as many EdTech companies as possible, giving them access to all the markets we're in. And it's a win-win for both of us. So with that concept, comes the Learning Super platform. Then, of course, in the middle of all of that, there is an augmented reality app that helps to take the engagement level to the next level, because still our target, our goal is, as we started at the beginning, is to take engagement to the next level. We were proud that in the pandemic time, we scored one of the highest engagement metric based in many independent sources like Alexa and other sources. And it was a proof that our equation does work, and that, enabled us to get several awards. And the latest was Microsoft in their annual event. They chose us as the global winner in their education category in the partner of the year based on this engagement and the impact that we did. So we look forward after this investment to take this new LSP concept to the next level and, try to revolutionize the e-learning industry, both for the, education and training sector, because our offering doesn't just include schools, it includes ministries. We run more than 10 ministries of education nationwide deployment, not just in Middle East, in Africa, and countries you wouldn't expect. I mean, we're doing countries like Djibouti, Comoros, Mauritania, and much more. And not to mention countries that have difficulties like Lebanon and many other countries. It have its own challenges, but we're proud of the journey that we're trying to help, these countries despite the challenges they are facing. Is part of the journey. Another part that we're serving is the corporate world. Mm-hmm. As a gamified learning management platform, we have created a version for the corporate and government training. It's going over the roof. It's part of the things that is moving us very fast in the training world as well. And it's completing. So now we're serving many of those learners from basically K to grade, starting from the school all the way to corporate training. So we're proud of the journey.
That's amazing. So you heard it here first. The LSP, the Learning Super Platform, we can add that to our alphabet soup in EdTech of the LMSs and CMSs and LXPs. The Learning Super Platform is a consolidated one-stop shop. It does payment. It does corporate training. It does K-12. It does a marketplace for EdTech companies to be able to enter emerging markets. It's a lot of different things in one place, which is very powerful enough to fuel entire national education systems. The MENA and the MEA, Middle East and Africa regions are really exciting sort of hotbeds of innovation, but they're ones we do not cover nearly enough on the podcast. This is part of why I'm really excited to speak to you today. Maybe you can give our listeners a little bit of an overview of sort of what it's been like building EdTech in the Middle East in 2022, and what are the factors? What are some of the investors? What are some of the other companies that you think that the world should be keeping its eye on?
It's a great question. As you said, many companies are giving that much attention to those emerging markets in general, and that's was then part of our scope and mission, and that's part of the excitement of the new investors that we want to dominate these emerging markets, not just in MENA and Africa, even all the way to APAC, all the way to Southeast Asia, and all these emerging markets where we have already started. It's a big potential. You're talking about, the bigger number of learner in those emerging markets, much more than, of course, US and Europe and many of the developed countries. There is a much bigger population. You already, know the numbers. I mean, in the MENA region alone, I mean, just to give you an idea that people doesn't know the scope, that you have a population of, close to the US in terms of population. Just, the MENA region alone, and not to mention Africa, where we, countries like Nigeria have like millions of students. So it is a huge market. You need, several Classeras, if you would, and many other companies to fill the need. And it's developing. I know many would think, they're barely getting their education, but, technology is solving some of their problems. So sometimes to fix this learning and education gap, we found out that the technology is the thing that's gonna bring many of those generation and many of those nations to the 21st century, because it's not about just building more schools. It's not about, having more curriculum. It's about this disruption of reaching the students, speaking their language, and the connectivity is getting there beyond what you would expect. We are helping several countries to get some funding. So part of what we do, actually, we work with some funding organization. In like some of the countries we worked with in Africa, we helped them to get, funding from, something like the World Bank, some of the funding organizations. And we were proud that to offer them at the beginning, help them even before they get the funding. It was that hard. So the budget, of course, is always a problem in this emerging market, but we try to work in the long term, in the long game, so that we could be for them until they get, the funding, and then you see the disruption to the education, to those new learners. And you cannot, describe, the happiness that when we see people and students in Sudan or Djibouti or Yemen or Lebanon having, to be educated in the same way children in the US are being educated using the latest technology. And some of them are using their devices just for WhatsApp and some normal stuff. And now the parents are excited to get them theirs. The Corona, as you know, helped a lot, with the government. So the problem we were facing before Corona, a big part of the challenge was the government and the regulations. And so the decision makers did not believe in technology. They said, no, this is a fancy thing. It's a luxury thing to have. After that, they shifted. And as you know, they start thinking of this as a necessity, not a luxury. And that helped a lot. When the decision makers, even though there is a problem with the infrastructure, there's of course problems with the budget. But when they start making this a priority, it changed everything. We start helping them by bringing them funding, start helping them by, we always believe in a concept that if you don't do it all, at least let's do half of it. So let's do part of it. I mean, because some countries, maybe we cannot cover the entire country, but why to prevent the kids that do have access from getting there and, and not wait until, so we start, changing the mentality of some of those organizations. And we start working with many semi-government organizations like the Arab League, for example, MENA, and the African Union, and many other organizations. We're trying to work with them so that they can help us with the decision makers, sort to make this a priority for all the governments to invest in technology education. And we are very optimistic that, it's a huge market. It's have a lot of potential there. There are several EdTech companies, to your question, working in the space, and maybe you would expect maybe there is not enough companies. There's some few warrior, if you would, working in that hard environment, but a very exciting solution. So we're exposed to both great EdTechs in the US, Europe, and MENA. We have this window to see, and we are seeing many creative EdTech companies that actually worth to go all the way to markets like the US and beyond. We actually host an annual event called Classera, like Innovation X Era, like the era of innovation, where it's the biggest EdTech summit in the region. And we start seeing many of those innovative companies coming and presenting, and they just need the access. And we help a lot of them to get to the markets. And we saw companies, I can tell of some examples like our friends Abu Ab, for example. They are doing creative way to have a very interactive content for the schools, and the engagement level is just amazing if you would look into that. There's other great companies like Anab, which is having a great training courses for the teachers. And again, the way how we see the reaction from the end user is just amazing. And even in what we're doing in Classera, the impact that we see from the students is amazing. We started part of our concept, as you heard me in the beginning, with the concept of gamification. For our gamification, just to give you an idea, we are integrated to more than 1,000 companies in the region that give reward based on our scoring system.
Wow.
So we imagine we having, so many kids go to the teacher, please give me another assignment. I have that many points to be a gold member because you're going to get a 50% discount in the theme park next door. So we created a very fun system where the society at large is helping in our gamification.
I love that.
It's a lot of work, a lot of effort, but it is paying off. And that's why we had one of the highest engagement metric in the industry globally. We are optimistic that you're going to see some examples that comes out of those emerging markets that going to be comparable at the global level. I'm excited of shows like yours, which highlight some of these great stories. We actually wouldn't expect. We saw some of our, annual winners comes from countries which have some of the weakest infrastructure and some of the countries with the biggest problems. We have winners in the competition that we do from countries like Yemen. We have seen something from Libya. We have seen countries that you wouldn't expect, but creativity have no location, and creative people have no limits. Even if there is hardship, you would see them always be creative into using technology. The teacher and how they use that technology was super, super exciting and super inspiring.
I find this whole conversation very inspiring, and opportunity is not equally distributed. But as emerging markets start to get technological solutions that bring education to as many people as possible, that start bridging all the digital divide, you start to have incredible. I think it's good for all of humanity that more and more countries and more people have access to high quality education. This is why I came into EdTech. I love the global nature of the field. I love that the technology can cross borders. You can work in Comoros, is a little island country, and it can have access to education from anywhere in the world. It's incredibly exciting. I hope to have you on for a longer conversation in the future, because I'm really excited to see where Classera goes and how we can continue to make EdTech reach all users, including those emerging markets.
Yeah. I can conclude with this. I mean, I really appreciate this show. It's super exciting since we have a lot of the EdTech listeners. Keep doing it. You have no idea into the impact you can create. So the impact that you have in people is profound, and we're so excited, especially in Classera, that we are working with some nationwide, projects where we're seeing unleashing the potential of some entire countries, entire generation to be something completely different. And for any of your listeners, any of the EdTech companies, if you have something interesting that could, have an impact on an emerging market, please come and reach us by any means. We can have an info at Classera.com. I mean, as easy as that. If there's an idea to collaborate, we'd love to have an impact together. And I want to thank you yourself for such a wonderful, wonderful show to keep the spirit of EdTech going, to excite more and more entrepreneurs to get to that space. We need it the most. It changes people's lives. We need more of it.
Thank you so much for being here with us on EdTech Insiders. We'll have you back for a longer conversation as soon as we can get that scheduled. Good luck. I'm so excited to hear about this round and all of the impact you're having.
Thank you very much, and we'll be in touch.